How's it going, everybody? In this video, we're going to continue our FlexVPN section by diving into our next topic, which is going to be the authorization policy. Now, the authorization policy is actually kind of cool in what it does. The idea is for the remote end, so the spoke, to basically dynamically register with the hub and gather information. Like, for example, going through and requesting an IP address and stuff like that. It's going to be leveraging AAA, so we'll have to do some additional configuration to allow that technique to happen, to bind everything that needs to be bound and the things that need to go into play with that. It's actually kind of an involved process, but once you get it working and stuff like that, the idea is you should be able to take the authorization policy, configure it so that it will be able to form on-demand configurations. It's actually kind of cool the way it works. Although when I was working with it, I ran into a couple of interesting issues. And I think it has to do with the way that IKEv2 and FlexVPN has been developed over time. Because when I was learning about it, it was under my understanding was that when the spoke registers with the hub, it should automatically inject a static route back to the spoke, so that things like iBGP would be able to work. And it didn't. And I was like, what gives? And so after diving into it and realizing what the problem might have been, I figured out a workaround. And then I wasn't aware of the default IKEv2 authorization policy. So I'm actually going to tweak the default IKEv2 authorization policy to actually advertise a loopback. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn the tunnels off on the spokes. We're going to reconfigure them a little bit differently to actually ask for an address from the hub. The hub will hand out the addresses, and then once that process is done, we should be able to form a iBGP peering between the spoke or the hub and the spokes. So that'll actually be pretty cool once we get it done. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we're going to go and focus on the hub side first. So where we're going to start is on the hub side. The config is kind of tricky if you've never dealt with it before. And the idea is what you're going to be doing essentially is on the hub. Go ahead and pull the hub up real quick. Is on the hub. Go to CSR3. We're going to be configuring the spokes to request an address. So the first thing we have to type in is the IP local pool. I'm going to call this the IKEv2 local pool. And we have to specify an address range. So I'm going to, in this case here, I'm going to type in 10.255.1. And we'll say, in this case here, we'll do 60 through 17 through 10.255.1.70. Okay, that's the pool that we're going to be using. Then we have to type in the crypto IKEv2 authorization policy, and we're going to call this the IKEv2 author policy. And underneath here, we're going to call the pool of IKEv2 local pool. We're going to drop that in and type in the net mask of 255.255.255.0. Now, there's a bunch of other options underneath here we could use, and this is going to be more or less for doing things like, for example, setting the route, doing reverse route injection and stuff like that. We'll be using this a lot when we get into the remote access aspect of FlexVPN, and this is where this would come into play. Now that we have that done, we have to enable the next step. So we're going to type in AAA new model and type in AAA authorization for network connectivity, which is what this is going to be. And we're going to type in the IKEv2 underscore AAA method list, and we're going to specify it's going to be locally defined, because we don't want to reach out to a server to do this. Although we could tie this back to Identity Services Engine or ICE and get the data that way. So what we're going to go do is underneath the profile. So do show run section IKEv2. I'm going to come underneath the profile of DVTI. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to specify that we use the AAA authorization, and for the group we're going to specify it's going to be a pre-shared key because that's the type of configuration we're using. The list that we're going to be using is going to be this list right here. That's the AAA method list we're going to call, and then we need to specify the IKEv2 authorization policy we just created, which is right here. We're going to apply that. So IKEv2 AAA method list, and then the IKEv2 authorization policy. We've now applied that. Now with that in play, we are good to go. Now we're going to go configure BGP. So BGP, the configuration for it is actually going to be pretty straightforward. What we're going to go do is configure this in such a way, so router BGP3, and we're going to type in the listen command, the no BGP default IPv4, and then we're going to specify the neighbor, and we're going to call this a peer group. So we're going to type in we'll type in flex peers, and then we're going to call this a peer group, and then underneath here we'll type in the remote AS is going to be 3, and that's all we have to do. We don't want to do the update source or anything like that because that could potentially mess us up and we don't want to do that. What I'm going to do now is type in the BGP listen command, and the range that we're going to be listening for is going to be 10.255.1.0/24, and we're going to say the peer group is going to be flex peers. And then we're going to go underneath address family IPv4 unicast and type in the redistribute EIGRP1. We're going to specify that the neighbor of 10.255.1. We're going to specify the, what was the beginning of the pool? 60. Because they should pull from the bottom up. 60. And we're going to type in activate. Normally well, in this case here we should be okay. Actually, you know what? So a workaround for this would be the neighbor for the peer group. Neighbor peer the command is going to be flex peers. And we're going to type in route reflector client, and that's going to automatically activate the adjacencies. So do show run section BGP. So that'll automatically take care of that for us. So as soon as they come in, notice how it automatically does the activate. It'll automatically do that for us. So what it will do is go over to the spoke side. So on, for example, CSR4, we're going to go to global config, and we already have the loopback configured, so we're okay here. But if we wanted to, we could tie this to an interface IP. Now, this is where this gets a little kludgy, because we already have it manually configured, right? So the logic that we want to manage is we look at the, if we do show IP interface brief, we don't have a loopback configured. So we could tie this back to a loopback, but we're going to be asking for an address. But we want to be able to send an address to the hub, and we have to define one. So what I'm going to go do is interface loopback 1, type in IP address is going to be 10.255.1.60, and then I'm going to specify /32. Tunnel 43. Oh, that's right. Interface tunnel 43, we're going to shut it down. And then interface loopback 1, the IP address of 60. There we go. And then we're typing AAA new model. AAA authorization network is going to be IKEv2 AAA method list local, and then I'm going to go and underneath the do show run section IKEv2, we're going to have this authorization policy default. So I can go underneath here. If we do show run all section IKEv2, and underneath, oh, you know what? I might have to enable it in order to show you what it looks like. Yeah, I don't see it showing up here. I might have to turn it on. But basically, if I was to, let's go ahead and just turn it back on. So default crypto IKEv2 authorization policy. So if I do show run again, and we look at that, it'll say, see how it says route set interface? But I had to specify what interface. So I'm going to go back underneath this config. And it says this will modify, yep, but we're going to say route set and then interface. We can say loopback 1. So that means what's going to end up happening is when this adjacency comes online, it's going to send loopback 1's IP address up to the hub. The hub will receive that dynamically through the IKEv2 routing exchange capability, which is the config exchange option that's built into it. And then that will learn it. It'll set a static route in the hub to point back to the spoke. Up comes our BGP peering. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of that. And then I need to go, now that I've set that, I need to go down to the next step, which is going to be going underneath the crypto config, or the IKEv2, do show run section IKEv2. And we're going to go underneath the profile here. And I will specify the AAA authorization user, which is pre-shared key, and then I'll be using the list of this list right here at the top that I just set up. This guy here, but then I'm going to just call in here default because I don't need to worry about anything else. And then what I need to go do is exit out of it and do show run interface tunnel 43. Interface tunnel 43, I'm going to type in the next command is going to be IP address negotiated. Okay, now that I've done that, and then I should be okay. The next thing I'm going to do is router BGP 3. I'm going to type in no BGP default IPv4, and then neighbor 10.255.1.3, remote AS of 3, address family IPv4. I'm going to go ahead and activate that adjacency, and that's pretty much all I have to do. I'll go ahead and I'll redistribute EIGRP1 into this guy, and I got to go to router EIGRP. Well, I'll get the config up and running. I'll get the peering to work first, and then we'll worry about redistribution later. So I'm going to go to interface tunnel 43, and I'm going to no shut it. So that should work. So what should end up, there's our BGP peering came online. And we also have an EIGRP peering. So what will end up happening is we have a dynamic neighbor through here, which is awesome. I'm going to go underneath here and do a show IP route. And you'll see that we have a static route back to 60, back to where we were peering from. And we also learned in this guy. So what I could do is, because of the fact that we are learning a BGP peering inbound, what I should do instead is I should turn off EIGRP over the peering, but I'm actually just going to go and make the router EIGRP VPN address family IPv4 autonomous system 1. I should be able to make the EIGRP the metric. No, it is the topology base, and set the metric. No, that's not it. I'm looking to set the metric to be higher. Metric weights? No. Metric rib scale? No, that's not it. I forgot how to do that. It's been so long. Yeah, so basically I wanted to bump up the administrative distance. Or is it topology base? So underneath here, here it is. Distance, underneath here, distance is we're going to set the EIGRP for internal routes. We'll set this to be, let's say, 225 and 235. Right, so do show run section EIGRP, and we'll grab this for 4, 5, and 6, or 4 and 5, I should say. 4, we'll just drop that in. So that'll resynchronize the connection. And then 6, since we're running just normal show run section EIGRP, router EIGRP1 distance is going to be EIGRP will be 225 and 235. So now if I go back to 4, let's go back to 3 actually, and we'll do a show IP route. And so we should be learning, we actually haven't done any redistribution yet. So what I will, so you'll notice now that we're learning those routes 225, which is what we're looking for. So now what I'll do is under router EIGRP VPN is I'll type in address family IPv4 autonomous system 1 topology base. We'll redistribute BGP3 with a metric of 100K 1255 1500. I'll just be able to take that, do show history. I'll take these commands right there, 4, 5, and then on 6, I'll just take in redistribute BGP3 metric of I'm running EIGRP AS6. Well, maybe that's why it didn't appear. No big deal. So we'll go back to 3. And actually, let's look at 7. Show IP route. And so we have our EIGRP redistributed routes. So there is some ways of doing this a little cleaner, obviously. But let me go get the rest of 5 and 6 configured. So on 4, show IPBGP summary. I have a peering, and I've learned a bunch of prefixes from 4, which is what I'm looking for. And that's basically what I wanted to accomplish here. So on 5, it's going to be the same thing. So if we do show a section AAA and IKEv2, what I'm going to go do is tweak these configs real quick. So I'm going to grab Notepad. I'm going to type in show run interface loopback 1, show run interface tunnel 43. So what I'll do is I will grab this right there. I'll grab this right here. I'll grab the AAA config. That should be up here at the top. AAA new model, and then this line right there. Let's go to the end of the line. Technically, it doesn't matter how it gets implemented as long as it gets tossed in. We have the authorization policy right here. We have that, and then last but certainly not least, we'll go underneath the profile. And we'll say that we need to drop in this particular profile and the default one. So there we go. So once I do that, I should be able to, we'll say 61 on this guy, and grab all this, and go back to 5. Actually, let me do 53. That would be a bad day. Definitely don't want that. Go back to 5, and copy and paste. And so what I'll do is I'll type in interface tunnel 53. I'll shut it down. Did I set that right? Oh no, I didn't. There's a reason why it's not working. Do show run section IKEv2 underneath here. That's what I forgot to do. grab that again real quick. Dump that in. Oh, I didn't do this command first. See, this is what happens when you try to do it fast. It blows up on you. And then I will grab this config one more time. Hopefully this will work. And then we have to go to back to 4, show run section BGP, and we'll just grab this line of config right here, place it on 5, blammo, and momentarily we should have a BGP peering to 3, assuming I've done everything correctly. Because what we should have is a show IP route. We should have another tunnel set up here momentarily. So 61's not coming across yet. Let's see what the hangup is. Do show IP interface brief. Do show run interface tunnel. Oh, interface tunnel 53. No shut it. That would help. Let's see if that fixes our problem. There's iGRP. And momentarily we should get BGP up. There's BGP. So back to 3. Hit the up arrow, show IP route, and then we have a second static route. So that's basically how that comes into play. So we have that squared away. And the next step would be to do 6 and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do for the time being is I'm going to go to CSR3, show run section EIGRP, and I will go underneath router EIGRP. Let's actually go underneath here to this point, and I will say no to that. I'll take down the EIGRP adjacency that I have set up, and then what I'll do is I will say do show history. Yeah, it's do show run. Let's just go to here and we'll show IP BGP, show IP route. And so now 7, when it learns routes, I will have to go to, I'll have to do mutual redistribution. So on 3, I'm redistributing BGP, do show run section BGP. I should be redistributing EIGRP as well, and I am. So we're redistributing that. So what I'll do is on 4, show run section EIGRP. I should be redistributing that as well. So 7 should be learning more. And we're not. What does 3 see? Show IP route. I see 24 and 25 coming in as EIG or as BGP. Show IP EIGRP topology. Okay, so I'm not redistributing into EIGRP correctly, or something like that. So router EIGRP VPN address family IP4 autonomous system 1 topology base redistribute BGP 3 with a metric of. That should be all I need to do. Do show IP EIGRP topology. I should see the routes being propagated. For whatever reason, the redistribution is not working. It's not working from BGP into EIGRP, which is a bad sign because it normally should. So, do show IP BGP. We are learning the routes in, but it's not. So the problem we have is we're not redistributing those routes into BGP for whatever reason. So I might have to do a clear IP BGP star soft to get it to work. Let's do a clear IP EIGRP neighbors. We'll just do a hard clear. Sometimes that helps. But as it sits right now, we're good to go. We've got 5 and 6 up and running, which is good. But if I do show IP EIGRP topology, I am not learning any of the routes from this guy either. So do show run section EIGRP. Why am I not learning anything? That doesn't make any sense. May have to do with the distance, but I mean, still, it should learn these routes inbound. And I'm redistributing EIGRP into BGP. So I'm kind of conflicted as to why that's not working. Show IP EIGRP topology. We should see the routes injecting from BGP in here, and we don't. So this is one of those situations where it's like the config is pretty straightforward, but for whatever reason it's not taking over. It may be a reboot, especially when the logic isn't working correctly, even when you've done everything correctly up to this point. So what I would do, I've done 5. Let's go get 6 up and running real quick, and we'll get him squared away. So we'll come in here and do 62, and this will be 63, 63, and make sure all that's looking good, and it is. So we'll type in router, actually let me turn 6 on, show run section BGP, show IP BGP summary, no peering. Okay, so let me just, no router BGP 6, not that big of a deal. So what I'll do is I'll come in here, router BGP 3, neighbor of 10.255.1.3 remote AS of 3. Let's go in here and no BGP default IPv4. Address family IP address dash family IPv4, and then we'll type in neighbor of 10.255.1.3 activate. So I'll just grab all this config right here, drop it onto 6. Oh, that's right, I forgot. I have to go to interface tunnel 63 and shut it down first. And everything else looks okay. Do show IP interface brief. Interface, let's just repaste that in real quick. There we go, that's better. Do show IP interface brief. One of these days I'll learn how to type. That's better. We're going to go to interface tunnel 63, and we'll go ahead and no shut it. That should bring the tunnel up, and there's our BGP peering, which is great. Do a show IP BGP, and once it does its calculation and stuff like that, we'll be in good shape. But show run section EIGRP, router EIGRP1. Let's go ahead and just get rid of this one real quick. We'll go ahead and flip this around, go to the end and put BGP3 in here. And then router EIGRP1, redistribute, or router BGP3, address family IPv4 unicast, redistribute EIGRP1 there. So now CSR3 should have a peering, show IP route. We have the peering set up the way that we need to. We have the static routes in the routing table, as you can see right there. We're going to do a show IP EIGRP topology, and it's still not bringing those routes in. So for whatever reason, I have that issue. I don't know why I'm having that issue. I could reboot and get it to work. What I'll do is at this point here, we have everything configured the way we need it to. So we have the dynamic aspect of it operational and stuff like that. What I can do is save the config on 3, 4, 5, and 6 and save it and reboot. And that's probably what I'll just do. And then bring you guys in the next video, we'll go about doing the figuring out the rest of it in terms of the redistribution and stuff like that. So if we do a show crypto IKEv2 SA, we're going to have SA set up to all of our devices. So we have all the connections up and ready that we need to. Show iBGP summary. I have multiple peerings up and running. All the ones with the star next to it indicate that dynamic peering is working. I've learned a number of routes, and everything seems to be operating the way that it needs to. This would be the ideal design if you had a very large deployment, because then you could conceivably take that /24 dynamic range that I've got for the dynamic peerings and stretch that out to a /23 or a /22 and get 500 or 1,000 spokes. And I mean, even you don't have to go that big if you don't want to. You could even have multiple tunnels set up and tied to the same connection. I haven't really tested that out yet because I really haven't had a diagram or a network topology big enough to really conceivably test that out. But this is FlexVPN. So that's the DBTI aspect of it, to me, is what makes it flexible. So there's that piece. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much as far as I can take it right now. I'm going to reboot, see if that can resolve the issue, and then we'll go from there. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.